There's another one that uses the Orion head from the collectible minifigure series, the transparent purple one, and then you've got the Rock Raiders rock monster behind it. So it's almost like a collection through time and history of Lego in itself, where you can really go through and just be like, wait a second, like what is that Spider-Man web piece doing over here in this wizard setup, right? It definitely makes it not only very well done work, but also just like that much more exciting when there's just these small little, I guess, pieces that kind of, have their whole other story, right? I mean, it's just nice part usage after nice part usage. And it's why I think this hobby can be so much fun.
Yeah, the NPU is life, let's say. But I
Yeah.
am very happy that I am happy about what you said, because I always wonder, if I use a piece in this minifigure, yeah, will someone spot how much time and effort it took to find that piece, buy it, and use it here properly to have that fig with that piece, which is the only one working that I have found, yeah? And I always wonder how many people actually see.
Hello, bricks, chicks, and minifigures. You are listening to AFOLs Welcome, where we talk about all things Lego from the perspective of two adult collectors. We're your co-host. I'm Grinch.
And I'm West.
And today we are diving into the world of custom minifigure creations with our special guest, Sobek Bricks. But before we get over to that, West, what did you build this week? How are you doing? I have a crispy new microphone, so I will not be dialing in the conference call today.
So you're doing pretty good.
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, today's been a slow week. I was single parenting for a large chunk of the week, so I didn't have a ton of build time, but I actually got in a little time today and finished the build for the McLaren F1.
Nice.
Which is very exciting. No stickers on it yet. Sometimes I like to do that at the end once it's complete, but a very fun build. And yeah, as I mentioned in previous episodes, I think the printing on it is definitely a little questionable, but I'm excited to actually get the larger tires from the Williams F1 car and put them on this one so that it also has the correct size rear tires as well. So I will do some modification only to make it more accurate to the actual vehicle. Interesting that Lego did that, but anyways, it was a very fun build, and I really like the scale of it. I think that's one of the things I appreciate most about it.
Yeah.
For an Icon series, it's not crazy huge. At the same time, too, it's scaled up with enough detail that it feels like the scale is very appropriate. So I wish Lego would do more sort of intermediate scale models like this for some of those larger builds that they make.
I wonder if they weren't, because this one came out first, right? Before, well before, maybe was it 2 years before this Formula One stuff? So I wonder, year and a half, wonder if this was the first thing that they were going to do, and then they signed the bigger deal or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's why they didn't do custom wheels like they did for the other car.
Well, I understand it. These ones are custom. They have the same wheel on there 4 times rather than a larger one. And so I think this was the first time this wheel showed up in Lego form. But yeah, you can see, I mean, here for the viewers, you can see just the wheels are the exact same size. And that's been a huge criticism of the set as it compares to the real life vehicle, is that the rear wheels on F1 cars are gigantic, almost doubled in size. So, but overall, a great model. So,
well, I didn't build anything this week because I was out at a work conference, so that was fun. And glad to be back. That's all I'll say. Shall we head over to the news?
Let's do it.
Exciting Lego news. All All right. So, West, what do we have this week?
All right, for our news this week, the Lego Boston headquarters is now officially open. Lego announced that they're opening a Virginia distribution center in 2027. The Simpsons Krusty Burger Lego set was officially revealed. We had an announcement of the Lego Ideas Twist of Nostalgia fan vote. The Fantastic Four versus Galactus set was officially revealed. And Lego Masters North America Season 6 is announcing casting calls for contestants for next season's Lego Masters. Grinch, what stood out to you this week?
Oh, well, the Family Guy. No, I'm just kidding. The Simpsons Krusty Burger here. The long-awaited return of Simpsons in Lego form. Definitely kind of speaks more to the larger Lego influence, I think, on society right now. When Lego first came out with The Simpsons, there was a little bit of like a pseudo backlash because there was a lot of people being like, "This isn't for kids. This isn't age appropriate." And now it's like, finally, more Simpsons stuff. Let's go. So it's very different response. Still some negative response, which is obviously the price for the set, but different criticism this time around.
Yeah. I this is an interesting one. I don't think for you or I, and please, if I'm speaking
Wow, how dare you?
out of turn on your behalf, let me know. But I think this is one that both of us will enjoy from a distance. I don't think either of us are huge Simpson fans. It's funny to me that people originally felt like The Simpsons was not appropriate for children, but when you compare it to things like South Park from our generation of like comedies and stuff that came out kind of when the cable era of comedies and daytime or nighttime television kind of took over versus the public access version of nighttime television. I mean, if someone feels like Simpsons is not for kids, which I'm not saying it is, I just don't think it's not like overly inappropriate compared to other things that are out there.
Yeah.
It doesn't really move the needle anymore. Like, sure, there's some jokes on alcohol and some, very mild profanities and obscenities maybe, but like it's nothing compared to some of the other stuff that's out there. And that's before you get onto like just the internet, which is like an open door into just
or
chaos.
Online gaming.
Yeah, for real. So I think it's that's an interesting take sort of originally, but to your point, right? Like Lego has sort of had to deal with that arc of morality as it's sort of adjusted as they've been able to sort of open the aperture to things that was maybe once thought inappropriate but no longer considered inappropriate. Take, for example, our episode last week, we talked about the National Lampoon Holiday House being now eligible because they said, hey, actually, we've reviewed the IP and we don't find this as obscene as we once thought, or necessarily out of bounds. So yeah, I don't know. It seems cool. Leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, it's full of detail. I'm starting to hypothesize something here, and it's a too big of a concept to just talk about in the news. So I'm just going to briefly introduce it, and it'll probably be something we follow up at the end of the year.
Yeah,
but I'm starting to see a trend here with the minifigures in Lego and priced apart. It's seeming more and more that Lego, if you use CMF as an example, is starting to value their minifigures in sets around like $5 a piece. Okay. That's kind of something we've talked around with our conversation about price to part ratio and like how it's not like that good. And like, there's some people that'll use like price for stuff out there, for however much you're getting and break it down by price. What I'm starting to see is this trend of like the really good price to part sets are the ones without minifigures. And then all of a sudden they throw in 3 or 4 minifigures and the price is $10 or $15, most notably in Star Wars, overpriced. Just like how we assume one of the dinosaurs in a Jurassic Park set, for example, is adding $20, $30, $40 sometimes of value to that price to part ratio. So I think it'd be interesting at the end of this year specifically because it's really become apparent this year more so than any other year.
Yeah.
The Shire, for an example, we're starting to see where we could maybe start to do some back of the napkin math here and get to a point where it's like, okay, well, this has a price support ratio of, I'm just going to make this up on top of my head, 16 cents, 14 cents. When you remove $5 per minifigure, it's at 10. You know, I'm wondering if there's something there. But the set, that's for nerdy Grant that can't sleep one night. The set itself looks fine.
Yeah.
Again, we're not huge Simpsons fans. It is chock full of details. I'd be curious to see, because we only have pictures right now, kind of how this stands up versus the other ones, because those other sets were really good in their own right, the Quickie Mart and the Simpsons house. So I'm just kind of curious to see, like, in line, is it, you know, essentially, is it 10 years better of Lego building than those other sets?
You know, this one's tough too. It has a really interesting color palette. It's very vibrant, and it's not like day glow almost, but it's more day glow than it is not day glow, if that makes sense. And so it just like that. I think there's like a bright purple and like an orange in it, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just really kind of gaudy, if you will. And I think that is from the show itself.
Yeah, that's intentional to kind of mimic the animation.
Right. And I'm not necessarily like, this isn't a critique at Lego. I just think the way it looks in Lego, which is faithful to it, it's a lot. It's a very, very loud set is what I'll say. But yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting to see. I personally am not a fan of any of the Simpsons sets. I don't think I look back on any of those with particular reverence or like, wow, they really moved the needle here in the Lego group with the release of this set. So that's just my take. I don't, you know, it is what it is. So
there was a short while there where I really wanted them, but I just decided, you know, I'm not like a Simpsons super fan, but I liked them.
I mean, they're fine. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So, twist of nostalgia. Did you vote, Grinch?
I have not.
Oh, dude, you better get on it. For those who are listening, the twist of nostalgia is a Lego Ideas fan vote for what I believe will be a Lego Ideas gift with purchase, if I'm not mistaken. But it is basically just throwbacks to older sets. And there's some very fun kind of variations in here. So just kind of looking through them briefly, they have different versions of... Yeah, so it's going to be a next gift with purchase. There's a yellow castle, but it's a bouncy yellow castle done. So it's like, you know, the nostalgia is back to the yellow castle from Lego. There's a few different Paradisa sets. They have some Elven Kingdom sets, Mtron. There's kind of like a throwback to Fabuland. I think if I recall correctly, voted for the Sea Serpent set, which was a boat based off of a castle theme. There's just some fun, you know, Power Miners and Rock Raiders both get a throwback here. So some fun little variations on older sets that, again, will ultimately become a gift with purchase for some, you know, large Lego purchase here in the future. So
yeah, no, they look really, really good. I like the Rock Raiders one, of course. But it is kind of funny, just like, you know, like looking at like the Paradisa ones, like doesn't the only connection it has to Paradisa, I feel like, is the pink. Otherwise, it's like, wow, Lego's come a long way.
Well, and that's like Fabuland. I mean, like the Fabuland one is designed to look like Fabuland, but it's all made out of Lego bricks. So it's just, I mean, you can see visually the connection, but once you dig into it, you're like, oh wait, that's not what that is. So
right.
A lot of fun there.
I did want to talk quickly about the Fantastic Four set.
Yeah, I did too.
This actually looks better than I thought it was going to. I was a little kind of disappointed by like some of the leaks where it's like, oh, it's going to be a brick built Galactus. Another one where, again, 427 pieces, $60. We got 4 minifigures. To me, it feels like they're adding $20 of value to that set for 4 minifigures, which would put them around $5 a piece. But aside from that, it does look like the torsos are very similar for everybody but Reed Richards, which I haven't seen a ton of criticism on, but I imagine it's there. The Thing looks a little silly. I mean, he should be. They really do need, this scale in between a big fig and a minifig, and we might be getting into that conversation. I'll keep the spoilers for the future of this episode. But by the magic of editing, we're actually doing the news after our interview. So yeah, they really do need kind of this like next scale up though between big fig.
Yeah.
And
Like
I'm not just talking about
Hagrid.
like long legs. Yeah, like a Hagrid style thing would have been better, or that size. I'm not talking about Hagrid like this, but yeah. Overall, I think this works a little bit better because Galactus is a giant being. It's not just like a blown up action figure. So it looks good.
Yeah, this one's interesting. I was just looking up the release of the movie. It's scheduled to come out late July 2025, so this summer.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that I think is sort of challenging with these series and sets is when we get them revealed before the movies really come out. Not that this spoils anything, but you start to kind of, it still starts to shape kind of your approach to the movie. I've heard there's a lot of hype around this Fantastic Four movie this summer, so it'll be interesting to see how well it's received. The Lego set looks fine. Good.
Yeah, and traditionally they've done, they come out with the Lego set like a month or two even beforehand.
So we're not that far out of the realm.
June 1st,
release
is
windows.
A month and some before it. I remember like when the Infinity War set came out. Don't read too much into this. Infinity War came out and they like put all the stones and like they just split them up into the 6 different sets. And then people are like, oh my gosh, it looks like the Soul Stone's here. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily true.
Right. Well, and the funny thing too, and I think Star Wars is the greatest example of this, where you see sets come out and the Thing is not featured in the film at all.
Mm-hmm.
So a good example of that was the Imperial or the First Order Snow Speeder from the episode 7 that was both a set and then featured in a battle pack later and was never actually revealed in the movie.
Scene.
Yeah, it was a deleted scene. And then there was that weird crab crawler from The Last Jedi that never made it into the final production. So, we've talked about it, right? Where we imagine that these, like Lego is given concept art to then build from when they're preparing their sets. And sometimes it doesn't end up in the final cut. So always an interesting way that plays out. Andor just finished this week, and another great example of this is in the Rogue One landing pad set. No spoiler alert here, because this is at the end of Rogue One. If you haven't seen it by now, shame on you. The movie originally ended with them all surviving and finding a way off the platform, taking the Death Star plans with them. And you can see in the set, there is a tile with the Death Star plans on it, and cuts from the trailer show them running in a sequence that was never made into the final film. And so just kind of an interesting way that the, again, an example of where the set came out and didn't necessarily replicate the final or finished product. So, but these days it seems like both from Disney's side of the house, we're not seeing the 6 or 7 set wave that we used to get. So with movie releases. So can you remember the last big wave of sets that we got associated with a movie?
I'm going to say this, and it's not to disprove your theory, because I agree, but it would be Jurassic World Rebirth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's fair.
Which I'm surprised, though, because, Andor, we got 2 sets. But you could also argue we haven't gotten that true... while Fantastic Four is hyped, people are wanting it because of the characters, not necessarily because the movie itself isn't hyped. The Fantastic Four is what's going to be hyped. And we'll see. We didn't even get any Thunderbolt sets. We didn't, we got four-ish Captain America sets, right? That movie didn't do particularly well. So it does seem the waves that we do get are more diverse as well, right? We got like 2 play sets, or I think it was 1 play set, a buildable fig, and then brickheads, right? So it's like
what was the movie from Marvel with all of the characters who lived from back in time? Not back in time, like from the history, and they like were involved in human history.
Eternals.
The Eternals, yeah. That one had a lot of sets.
4 sets, yeah. 4 or 5.
And I feel like that was one of the last big Marvel or Disney waves with a lot of sets, if I can remember correctly, of releasing around the time of the movie, right? So
right.
Yeah, I don't know, interesting. But you're right.
I think
the new Jurassic World movie just got a lot of sets. So
yeah, but we do. I mean, I totally agree, though. I mean, back in the day, we would have gotten, more sets, right?
Yeah.
But you could also argue there'd been less big blockbusters. There would have been like the 2 or 3 movies of that year, right?
Do you think Lego's hedging their bets? Going, we can always produce stuff afterwards, but we want to wait to see how it goes? Or do you think Disney or whoever the parent company is hedging their bets?
I think they've just learned. They have so much stuff right now, right? Because like with Fortnite, they came out with like 4 sets. They just announced 5 sets, right? With the Minecraft movie, they only did like 2 movies, but they did a bunch of other Minecraft sets, right? I think they're just being a little bit more selective so that they can go wider instead of going deeper.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I did have one last quick thing before we move on. They did announce, Bricklink Designer Program did announce that starting May 20th, which will be when this episode is, or the day after this episode releases, you will actually be able to buy or reorder some Bricklink Designer Program Series 1 and 2 sets.
Oh, that's exciting.
It is in the US and Canada only. So for everybody else, I am sorry. But with that bit of news, let's go ahead and move on to today's topic. All right, so our guest today is a true wizard of customization that crafts intricate, one-of-a-kind fantasy minifigures and brings epic realms to life, from noble elves to fearsome orcs to spell-slinging wizards or cursed kings. Whether you're into world building, role-playing, or if you just love to see Lego pushed into magical new limits, you're in for a treat today. Please welcome the mastermind behind True Miniature Legends, Sobek Bricks, the creator that turns tiny plastic pieces into epic fantasy heroes. Welcome, Sobek. Welcome to the pod. How are you today?
Yes, hello guys. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm good. Thank you. I'm very excited to do this podcast. So very happy to be here, and I hope it turns out good.
If it's half as good as your work that you do, it'll be amazing. So
it's always the 30% effort.
That's right. So tell us a little bit about your Lego story before we get into your work specifically. How did you become an AFOL?
How did I become an AFOL? Some say I just grew up with Legos.
Legend has it.
Yeah, but the Lego bricks were always somewhere beside me in my life. I just had a little break for a couple of years for my dark age, just to mark this point in life, that you have it. But I have always built as a kid from the same amount of pieces. I had very limited income of sets throughout the years, so I tend to know each piece I had in my collection. and to build them over and over again. Then after I finished my regular school and like started to grow up, I just give up Lego as there are other things to do in life, like gaming, for example,
Hmm.
which was a bit more mature, let's say, than bricks. But later on, actually, Star Wars get me back to Lego because
Okay.
I have watched The Mandalorian, and I think, well, that's a really cool show, and the first season was really cool. Besides the side missions in the middle of the series, but it got me back to thinking that I would like to build something from Lego Star Wars, and I think I bought the small Mandalorian set with that figure, and started to make a mock from the Tatooine. And
Hmm.
it at first it was a very small mock, but then I expanded it like twice the size, then fourth the size, and then I had a very big mock, like over 100 stats to like 30 or 40. Uh, and that was the start of me getting back to Lego, and also the fact that with the coronavirus pandemic, all that started, at some point we just bring out all of the bricks that we have in the shelves and started to building some city with it. So that two things, like the Star Wars and the pandemic, brought me back to Lego from the break.
I think that time brought a lot of people back to brick building because you didn't really have an option to go anywhere or wanted to, and so it's like, well, what else can we do? And I think that was a huge help actually because it helped you kind of stay engaged creatively when there wasn't a lot of external stimulus to kind of
Mhm.
keep us motivated or in uh, socialized, if you will. So that's funny to hear that kind of played a similar role for you.
Yeah, many people had the same, as you said, and also the prices have gone significantly up with that time because everyone was buying Lego.
When you had a lot of time on your hands, right? Yeah.
So you kind of quickly transition though from Star Wars into this more custom creation uh, work, right? So speaking of your work, where can people find you if they want to go check out some of your pieces here?
So I'm running an Instagram page, one of the biggest in the world, I think, with custom minifigures,
Hmm.
uh, which is exclusively I'm using only Lego parts, not custom parts from
Woohoo!
any other brand. So that's a tricky part, and also there are some slight illegal techniques, let's say, but they are not breaking the pieces. I'm not cutting them. I'm not gluing them or in any way. So that is like my way of do it. And yeah, I invite any of the listeners that doesn't know me yet on my page. There are over 300 unique custom creations of mine to see there.
I know when we were first chatting about you coming onto the show, I went to your Instagram, Subek Bricks, and I looked in the second line. You have a bullet point that says like hashtag Lego Purist. I was just like, he's on. We're doing this. Let's go. It's like I really hope he says yes now because he has to come onto the show.
Yeah, the Lego Purists stance actually, I've gained that from the friend that inspired me to do custom fix, because I have told you a bit of backstory of how I get back to the Lego, but it was like 3 or 4 years before I even started doing any custom minifix and starting the profile on Instagram. As the profile will be soon about 2 years of life. It's now 1.5 ish
Hmm.
running, and I've done my first custom fix like 2 or maximum 3 years ago, which was very simple Black Falcons, just some army with copies of them, and I actually started doing fix after I did some of mods on my YouTube channel, which is now dead, but I want to get back to it in the
Yeah.
time I will have maybe in the future. But I did some mods of Lego Star Wars sets, and it was such time consuming to like make videos of it because I had
Hmm.
to build a set, then break it down, modify it as I wanted to, then break it down again, and show on the video how to rebuild it to the state I have made a mod of it. So I was like three or four times building the same thing.
Yeah.
And even to remember in my mind, which I don't have a good memory, it was very hard task. And then to like record the video, talk about it. I'm not really good at talking, so I didn't like that not that much. My back hurt of sitting that much that time. Sorry, that much time. So at the time, I just drop it, and I started this Black Falcons small army. Then I met a friend, Timothy Briggs, which happened to live in the same city I live, and he's done some very cool armies. He posted on Facebook very early on. Uh, and he inspired me to do more custom figs. I learned a lot from him, and that's I've learned also that doing a custom minifig is sometimes like half an hour, 1 hour, yeah, of work.
Yeah.
Is if
Totally.
you have the idea in mind, then you make the fig and you have a finished product very early on, but only sometimes because sometimes it takes weeks. But you can have a finished product very early on, yeah. With mocks, you can build for hours and hours and you still haven't finished, yeah. And I believe also that not any minifigure is ever finished. That you can always add something
Hmm.
to it, but it is much more uh, efficient in time of creating this than building mocks. And I had a very limited time. That's why I switched almost exclusively to the minifigs. I very rarely build mocks, like one or two per year, and like hundreds of minifigs per
Hmm.
year. Yeah, so that was the story of I'm switching from the videos of modding stuff and building sets. Also, I have run out completely out of space in my flat for Lego, so
Yep.
minifigs also takes a lot of less space than sets. Yeah, and that's how I switched from sets and mods and mocks to custom minifigs.
Well, I was working on a mock earlier this year, and for me, I think the hardest part, because the mock is so easy to envision, and you can use a lot of different pieces to do something very similar. The absolute hardest part for me was getting to the minifigures, because I very quickly noticed there wasn't a really good resource out there that has like, hey, here's all the minifigure pieces available, right? Like you really have to kind of be very familiar with the pieces and know what's out there in order to kind of build. Have you run across that?
Yeah, so my wanted list on Bricklink
Yep.
has almost 3,000 position of different pieces, and it is a list that I create since 2 years. I always add something to this, and I'm very proud that I have like 60% of the list completely like in my shelves in the house.
Wow.
So that was in some time I even spent more time at Bricklink than building minifigs themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Just to
Mm-hmm.
find the pieces. And also in Poland we have a very limited like amount of rare pieces. You have to order from the European Union at least to
Yeah.
get something, and so even some pieces are not available at all. So I think it is a little bit of a downside and upside of building with minifigs, because sometimes there are limited pieces that you could use that could work, but also sometimes there are that much pieces that there will be like only one connection on the internet of two separate pieces that exist that you have done
Mm-hmm.
and nobody else have ever done before, and that's the best feeling you can get from minifigs. Yeah, you have
Of
such a
sure.
variety of pieces, many prints. Like, let's say using unprinted pieces in minifigs is lame. If you see a custom minifig with unprinted legs, I haven't done that on my profile since maybe a year. It feels very strange to use a piece which is not printed because you're losing the detail that can be there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, so there's a few things that come to mind. First, when you said that you're looking at Bricklink and stuff like that, are you building these uh, like in real life, or are your models done in Stud.io? Because the pictures you
Uh,
post online look really crisp and clean, and so I'm torn as to whether I'm like, is this done for real, or is he building this up in Stud.io and then rendering it really, really well?
well,
So
I don't have any skills at rendering from Stat.io, and
okay, well I think
also Stat.io doesn't have that many pieces as
Yeah.
yeah,
all
that
of the
answers the
things. Yeah,
question.
yeah. So
So
I do everything in like physically. Yeah,
yeah,
I put every minifig physically. I don't have even the skill to like put the minifig in mind and then just recreate it when I have the pieces. I had to try everything with my hands.
so that I mean that's interesting, and you know we've talked to other Lego designers. We recently interviewed Fear and Bricks, and we talked to the brick architect, and both of them had mentioned kind of constraining themselves with a, a kind of a set of rules because in their mind that helped them um, kind of spark creativity. And it seems like you're doing something similar in a few ways. One, you mentioned, right, you're sticking to minifigures specifically, which I think to your point, and this was something that Tom had brought up, was that, you know, the size of your collection is it can take up a lot of space, right? And so for you, realizing that mock building needed to transition to minifigure, you know, building, I think is just a really interesting kind of, you know, continuation of that theme. And then to hear you say, well, I'm sticking to, you know, Lego pieces, officially, you know, branded Lego pieces. I'm not modifying them in any way, which I think is an important caveat. And you're sticking to largely, you know, legal techniques for, you know, using them. I think that's so cool to hear kind of that story unfold. And when I see the models you create, I'm just like blown away by what you're able to put together with you know different connections and you know putting together different pieces from the entire Lego catalog. So that's just so cool to see.
Very very happy to hear that. I have one cool example of what can you achieve when you are sticking to official Lego parts and no gluing, no sticking, no drawing them yourself, not using tape and everything. Yeah. So I have this paladin in first series of D&D created, the dwarf paladin using the
Hmm.
torso and legs from the D&D set from the last year, and he had a very specific color scheme, yeah, of this turquoise, I think the color of it, the like this light blue, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I used gold as armor and shoulder pads, helmet, and weapon, and I didn't have any of the shields. There was not a single Lego shield that exists in this color scheme. Like not a single gold shield would match this character. Yeah, so I had a very big trouble, but I very quickly and happily realized that I can make it myself. Yeah, so I used the axe head for the shield, which was held by the Lord of the Rings ring
Yeah.
from the back, so the minifigure can hold from the open stud from one side, the rest of the ring connected to the axe head, and then I created a very cool shield, like with a diamond on the top. Yeah, and I was so happy because I have achieved something without using custom parts from other brands, just using only original Lego pieces, which matched perfectly the character I created.
I think that's such a good example of your work and why it's so cool that you use only, you know, Lego pieces, because it almost makes like going through your work like a little bit of a giant Easter egg hunt. Because yeah, I mean, there's that example, and then like I'm looking at one right now where you've used like the golden stitch for a little wand type piece, right? And then there's There's another one that uses the Orion head from the collectible minifigures series, the transparent purple one, and then you've got the Rock Raiders rock monster behind it. So it's almost like a collection through time and history of Lego in itself, where you can really go through and just be like, wait a second, like I what is that Spider-Man web piece doing over here in this wizard setup, right? It definitely makes it not only very well done work, but also just like that much more exciting when there's just these small little, I guess, pieces that kind of, have their whole other story. Right? I mean, it's just nice part usage after nice part usage. And it's why I think this hobby can be so much fun.
Yeah, the NPU is life, let's say. But I'm
Yeah.
very happy that I am happy about what you said, because I always wonder, if I use a piece in this minifigure, yeah, will someone spot how much time and effort it took to find that piece, buy it, and use it here properly to have that fig with that piece, which is the only one working that I have found, yeah? And I always wonder how many people actually see the pieces from other teams, yeah, because sometimes you just have like used on the last exhibition I have used the Wolverine mask for a Raven Knight because it has the same color scheme of black and bright light orange, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And like all of the kids like goes, wow, there is a Wolverine, the Wolverine, and all of the kids were like that, yeah. But when sometimes you use a piece that nobody know where it come from, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like I recently, Beyond Bones, also a fellow custom minifigure community member, let's say, used a fish ornament on the helmet as like a fish knight minifigure, yeah. And I didn't know that piece, so it happens all the time that someone uses something very cool and then the half of the comments are, what is this piece, yeah? Can you pass the number, yeah? Because that is the most important thing from the thing you can learn, yeah. There's more and more interesting pieces, and there are always something you don't know, and there is always something to buy on Bricklink, that's for sure, because
Mm-hmm.
I have thought 1 year ago that okay, this is enough, and oh boy, it wasn't.
Yes. Famous last words, right?
Yeah.
When I love, one of the things that stands out to me is, I'm looking through your work at the moment, but one of the things that I really like are the shields you build. So that, like the larger shields that use the sloped pieces, and you kind of set
Mhm.
them up in like a quartered pattern,
Yeah.
and so that looks just like very knightly. And then I really like the bow and arrows, or the bows that you create with those curved branch pieces. I'm surprised that's not like an official Lego bow, because that technique is so good. It
Yeah.
looks so realistic.
Yeah, surprisingly, that's the only piece or thing I use which is not coming from Lego, because the string is made from, not a net, but what is it called in English? Uh, the material that you can stitch and connect your clothes together. You know,
Just like some
Mm-hmm.
thread.
Yeah.
yeah, thread. The string is from thread, yeah. So I just picked this and cut it and tied it on the bow, yeah. But the bow itself is all from Lego, yeah. There's two horns and a lightsaber hilt, and actually that was done firstly by, I don't know who, the Kubrick or Edge of Bricks, one of them, because I always miss which one is which. But he done that without the lightsaber hilt piece in the middle. He just connected it with the hand, and I very much like that idea and continued it. Actually, my first post ever included this bow, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always nice to see like you can create different bows and different weapons than the existing in Lego with pieces. And also the shields. The shield is actually mine because I have used, maybe the pattern is not the most crazy thing you can create, but I have found a piece that works very well for this, and this is the 2x2
Oh
turntable
yeah.
plate, which is very very thin, so you can see like the plate behind. Because if you use like a regular plate on this shield, you will have a very very big side
Mm-hmm.
effect that the shield gets bulky and all. So
And for
I have
those on
fun with it.
YouTube, Sobek's holding up the pieces that he's referring to. So if you're on YouTube, pay attention to the video.
Yeah, this would be a problem of a podcast, but you can always type the 2x2 turntable Titan Bricklink and you will see the piece that I'm using, which is my technique because it can be held by the minifigure hand. And as I said, it's very, very thin, so you cannot see it on the photos, which is good because you only see the pattern of the
Mm-hmm.
shield. And actually, one more thing I want to tell about this shield. If you know the shields like the Bear Knight shield from the CMF,
Mm-hmm.
or who else got this? The Frightening Knight, that's also from the CMF. There is a bigger triangular shield shape, yeah, the mold.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, this quarter pattern shield is actually the exact same shape of this exact same size as this shield. This bigger
Oh,
triangular
Okay.
interesting.
shield. They
Well, I
match
think
one to
we
one.
need to coin this term, the Sobek shield, and get that trending, because and I think that's so cool as a custom builder. It is your signature shield now.
Yes,
That's
I
awesome.
have like some things like that, and like they were so far spread across the community that right now everyone is using.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I'm like from one side very happy that I see I inspired so much people and created something new that is widely used. And from the other side, it's very hard to track on the Instagram who made something first. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
also have some things that I thought I created first, but later on someone mentioned like the article from 2009 that some folk did this once in the in the whole Lego life. Yeah,
Well,
like
and so I think I didn't expect the conversation to go this way today, but like you're touching on a very internet specific challenge and problem, right? And which is like if you just naturally came across this technique in your own building, but you weren't the first to necessarily do it, right? It would be maybe wrong for you to claim it as your own, but
yeah,
you can claim it as like, hey, I mean, I didn't see their work until someone made me aware of it later. So like
you can always say that.
well, you can, but to some extent, right? Like that still is very much your own thing, right? Like, and so it's this weird sort of like who, what can you claim and what can you not claim, right? And I, to the point you made, I just wanted to highlight for the listeners and viewers that I appreciate you calling out the person who invented that, or that we believe was the first to do that bow design, because I think that's just very professional of you to give them credit. So yeah, hats off to you doing that. So
Yeah, that's very important for me because I think that maybe in the future someone will return the favor. Yeah, so if someone will say this sheet was created by Sobek Breeze, and now I will be happy because someone mentioned that I have made that. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
and always when I create something new, like if I don't know, I just tell, wow, this is the new technique. Okay, and let's go. Yeah. But if someone in comments like mentioned like, "Whoa, this was done with this person," then I try to edit the post and like give the credit to the original creator. Even like I can say that I have made this without knowing this, but I will still give the credit to the original creator that have done it
Mm-hmm.
whatever time before me. Yeah, because it is like I think something special in the community, and some things are just made with. Very specific style. Like you can easily determine the style that people are doing fixed. Yeah, like we have a Dark Forge who is a very large profile and very old in the community, one of the best. Who's right now he's probably having a break, but his style is very recognizable. Yeah, and other people like Two Pair Fix and Fool's Figures, which has very similar style, but this is like their style. Yeah, like small gnomes and funky stuff, some Marvel like superhero stuff. It is like their style, and I think it is just nice to give people the credit for the thing they created. Yeah, because if someone put the banana on the wall and tape it, uh, someone did that first. Yeah, everyone can do
Right.
it, but someone did that first.
Well, and yeah, I mean that's so much more of like an internet issue than we have, right? Because it's the intent is to never copy. It's just there's 7 billion people in the world right now, let alone 10 years ago. There's people have come and gone. Like it happens. I think famously, like between DC and Marvel, I forget which two characters. I believe it was Deadpool and Deathstroke. They came out within like a week of each other, and they're like literally the same exact character in their
Yeah,
respective universes. But like they had just both been working on them for like a year, and then like within the same week they launched two So there's been times where like it is most oftentimes it could just be coincidence, but in the times where it's not, always give credit, right?
yeah, but it is happening also a lot in our community
Mm-hmm.
that you have something and you have just created it and then it's just like waiting in line until you post everything that was planned before, and it's waiting in the shelf for the photos and someone posted like with the same connection or something. Yeah, it happens very very
Yep.
often in this community because the pieces are limited, and if you actually know what you're doing, like with the one piece there will be like only two or three or four that could combine perfectly, so many people can find this connection. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes you just think, wow, this is so cool, and then you see it someone posting it before you. Yeah, so it happens a lot. Yeah, like there are many people doing this, and we can like overlap each other. Yeah, even without knowing something. And I rarely see like stolen ideas in
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there are also like groups when people are sharing stuff and before posting. Yeah, like everyone just easily wait before the original creator just post the things he
Mm-hmm.
created, and only then post their own invention with that thing that he posted. Yeah, so that's very cool, and I think the community is a very pleasant one to be in.
Yeah.
But I mean, just look at like Lego ideas, right? How often do we get like 3 or 4 submissions in one review stage that are Taylor Swift or I mean, or Appa, or this last version or stage we had literally 2 National Lampoon Christmas Vacation sets. They're not copying each other. They just happen together. And I think that's a really good transition to our next question here. But Sobek, what inspires your work? Because we've talked, I think, a little bit around it, but like when you're gonna go create a minifigure, or what happens in the day or the week where you're like, I want to go build this, you know, Black Falcon's Night Bowman or something like that.
Yeah, so I currently struggle with the inspiration, and I quite don't know how to answer that question, as I right now feel the least inspired to do anything as in my life. Uh, but like sometimes you watch a movie, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
or play a game where there's a very cool character, and that's the most common of inspirations you can get. Yeah, so someone in the media did something very cool that you want to recreate. On the other hand, recreating exactly the same as in the game or the movie is very very hard with the Lego pieces, because it always comes down to the molds and the prints, and Lego does the molds and prints with their own ideas, so they are not exactly the same as the one you want to create. Yeah. The other type of inspiration you can have is like from someone else's work and techniques and the minifigure or the style. Yeah, there are many like people doing challenges. Like right now, the Bambrick Studios is doing a flower challenge or the something like this. So you have to use a plant in piece into integrated into minifig. And there are already like 20 very cool creations with that, and that is very cool that the people try to inspire each other to create the things that you would like. Yeah, sometimes like for me the best inspiration is when I come up with something that I want to make, but it happens very 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 rarely
Mm-hmm.
right now. uh, and I don't know, I need to like think for a second also.
Well, I got an idea for you, and you can use it if you want to. But I was looking through your work here, your catalog, and I was thinking it'd be really cool if you did like a Star Wars series of essentially medieval Jedi. So if you had like Luke Skywalker, he had a blue katana sword, for a time appropriate piece with maybe some different kind of armor on in a mechanical type of hand. Just throwing that out there and seeing if you can run with it.
Yeah, well, what's really funny right now is like according to what we have talked a minute ago, someone did that.
Oh no.
Yeah, the exact same look with the blue magic sword and the
There's
mechanical arm. Yeah,
well, I can confirm I did not see that. So
Oh man.
yeah. So you see, it all happens all the time. It happens. So,
We
yeah,
we
but
talked about the ephemeral nature of creativity on the internet, and I think there's a live example of.
yeah.
exactly.
But one of the things that stands out to me is that it seems like you're not using a lot of, or you shy away from a lot of IP based stuff, and I think not to say that you don't engage in it, but you brought up a point, which is like when you're using these printed pieces that Lego's created, they've created it for a purpose, right? They create a shield to be in Lord of the Rings. They create, so when you're building, like, at least from the side that I've seen, for some of the listeners and viewers not familiar with Sobek's work, I don't see a lot of like Lord of the Rings, expansion figures on there. What we do see are pieces from Lord of the Rings that you then use for your own purposes, to build your own army of, unaffiliated orcs or elves or dwarves or something to that effect. And I think that's really cool because you can see the how it inspires your work, but at the same time too, you're not constraining yourself to the visual palette that series or work of art kind of has already, right? So I I think that's a really neat way that you kind of expand upon those pieces. Do you ever pick like a piece as like a seed piece and you kind of work around that?
Yeah, it happens like when creating a minifig is the main point, but I think we can come back to it a bit later, as I want to address like what you have talked about in a minute. Uh, yeah, I want to like I don't want to copy any IP, like I don't know if that's the sense of it, but if you have like you have two types of customs. You have upgrades and you have your own creations. Yeah. So if you are looking for an upgrade, okay, you can take a minifig that already exists and just try to make it better. Yeah. But you're just reproducing something that Lego has already done. Yeah. And I always find it more fun to do when you take a piece which is originally meant for something and use it somewhere completely different. Yeah. And that makes it you try to blend it into something else and to break that connection with the original background of that piece. Yeah. And that's what we have tried to let me at the beginning and later on with the collab series currently running of Griffin Knights or Griffins with the hippogriff from the Harry Potter. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a griff, but I really wanted to make a griffins faction, and there is the only mold of that animal, yeah, in Lego. So I use the hippogriff as a griff, yeah, but it is not the Harry Potter this character. It's like the completely separate animals in this world. And also happily, Lego tends to sometimes doesn't know what they're doing, so they have created two versions, two colors of that hippogriff of the same character from Harry Potter. So one is gray and one is white, like very small distinguished, yeah, between them. But
Yeah.
thankfully to that, we have two different colors of the Griffin, and the Griffin faction doesn't have 5 copies of them.
Well, you just posted today about the minifigures that we are expecting to see in um, the ball machine, right? The Lego idea set, and one of them is a Kraken knight. That seems like some unexplored territory of something really fun that you could do and explore. Like those aquatic knights and what that looks like.
Yeah. Uh, so this Kraken Knight was not my very favorite of the series because it's related to sea and like underwater, maybe some nights, which doesn't completely hit the spot for me, like for my taste of the castle minifigs. Yeah. But the color scheme is very fine and unique to the knights, and every new official faction from Lego is something that you can create later on.
Mm-hmm.
Many things like I can do some series, I can do another collab with Timothy with the full faction, and it is always nice to have, like, we're having 4 new factions this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So Krakens, Griffins, actually, which I want to talk briefly also in a minute, and the White Horse Knights. That's a stupid name, also a stupid color scheme, which is actually the exact same as 2013 Castle, and the Serpents, which are new, and these are cool. Yeah. As long as they have a different yellow color than yellow skin tone of minifigs, because
Yeah.
they will blend too much if it's the same. So we have to wait. Uh, but it is nice to see finally some new factions, some new castle sets, because the castle series is a bit dead, like on its own. We have figs and factions spread throughout, like right now, ideas, icons, 3-in-1 creators. Yeah. So Krakens are really nice to have, and definitely I will make something from them. I have bought recently some fish helmets. Like this helmet could actually very nice work for the Kraken fix, yeah, because it has the same scheme of the sea and water and fish related. So it will be a very fine fine faction. Maybe some Cthulhu boss
Mm-hmm.
can stand behind them or something. So it's always nice to see new factions from Lego. And what I wanted to say, it is also a very funny coincidence, or maybe not a coincidence, that the Griffins faction actually was created months and months after I created my first series of Griffins with the Griffin Rider and the light bluish gray,
Mm-hmm.
white, and dark red scheme, which happens to be on the Griffin's shield, which was a very fun, very fun thing to see after my creations, because I knew some people at Lego had watched my minifigs and my page, and there is a small chance that they get inspired by my faction
Mm-hmm.
and create these griffins related to my creations.
I think there's more than a small chance. I think the fact that you're taking these factions and you're building out like a backstory to them, I think is really cool. And I would imagine Lego probably really appreciates that to some extent. So I think that's just really neat.
And not using custom parts.
Exactly.
So I think we've kind of talked a lot already, right? So I think we've talked a little bit about why you got specifically into customs, about the process. Let's talk a little bit more about the specific pieces here. Do you have a favorite one that you've built?
The favorite piece. So it's a hard question because there are many of them.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe a piece that is used the most, or favorite, like armor piece. I think that the favorite armor piece will be this 4 spiked armor from Lord of the Rings. It was, and
Okay.
later in Nexo Knights with the orange spikes, which is the least favorite of the variants of this. and later on in the Batman, like Metal Apocalypse or
Yeah,
something
yeah, yeah.
figure, it has a full flat silver ones. And I think this is the coolest armor piece Lego has ever created. And everything I create like the orcs, and I try different armors and everything. Like I could use this only armor exclusively for orcs. It is that good, yeah, because you cannot find any better piece for an orc to wear than these brown spikes with the light tan on the shoulders. The brown armor with the tan spikes. Yeah, this variant.
Hmm.
It is absolutely one of my favorite pieces. And from the more like commonly used, I think the ultimate, the easiest one to use and the most used piece is the like regular shoulder pads, which came
Okay.
in different colors. We have flat silver, per dark gray, and now flat gold or per gold, whichever gold it is. So these are like for basic knights. These are always the best. Yeah, the best choice. And like for the basic, yeah, because if you want to go further, you always want to use like more rare piece
Hmm.
uh, and something more uh, standing out from the fix, from the other fix, yeah, from the regular troops.
Yeah, you don't want to just repeat the same exact thing over and over and just change the color or something like that.
Yeah, and like from the like very rarely used pieces, I think maybe the Dane's helmet will be my
Hmm.
favorite, but that's not because it's the
Dane
best.
from The Hobbit.
Yeah, from the
Yep.
Hobbit. I think it will be my favorite piece just because it was uh, expensive to get, and I was kind of tempted by Timothy, like this piece will be perfect for Griffins. You have to buy it. And I was like opposing him for one day or two, but finally I have like broken. I had to buy this, and the piece is my favorite because it's so much detailed, and it shows like how much Lego can do with
Yeah.
pieces. Yeah, you can have a piece which is a completely new mold, which was used only for once in its lifetime. Yeah, it has three different colors, prints, and many Lord of the Rings pieces has some very small details which
Hmm.
you don't even know they are on this piece before you can see it, before you watch it very closely. And
Hmm.
in the last meeting with Timothy, we found that the Rohan helmet has on the tip, on the top, has a horse helmet shaped,
Yep.
uh, you know mm,
Design.
a
Yeah.
whole like mohawk,
Yep.
yeah, on the
Hmm.
helmet.
Yeah.
And I have this helmet in the unprinted version, and I never seen it. Only with
Yeah.
a gold print on it on the side. Yeah, so on this very small thing, print on the side, and there is like horse printed. Yeah,
Yeah.
so like some pieces just show how much Lego can do, and also how much they don't want to do regularly.
Yeah. I mean, those two pieces you just mentioned were made 13 and 12 years ago, respectively. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was gonna say that always frustrates me when we get like a Marvel series with some really great minifigures and then they have just like plain like legs.
yeah,
You
plain
know,
legs are the worst things ever. Yeah,
it's
like the medieval market, 6 figs out of 7 had plain legs. What the heck?
it's just a bummer, especially when like the dual molded ones with like what looks like boots. You know what I mean? Like those are just such an easy like just throw those in there. You know, like that's
Yeah,
mhm.
something, right? But yeah, I
I
don't know
love
how many
to.
like Black Panthers I have that have like just black legs, and you're like, you couldn't just keep the printing going down the whole suit.
Yeah, the broken prints are absolutely the worst, and also it happens in the early castle because you can have a very detailed, beautiful torso. Yeah, you have some tabard on it, you have a chainmail, you have a belt, and then brakes, and never a piece that continued that print existed. And you cannot possibly find legs for that beautiful torso, and it's so frustrating. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I recently for the Crown Knights they have this big trouble with the torso, which has like opened material on the sides and the chainmail on the front on the middle. Yeah, and continuing that is so hard that usually we just put that minifix on the horse, so you just see only the torso and legs. Yeah,
That's a
but I
good
found
solution.
one legs. Yeah, I found one legs that worked not perfectly, but very very close to continue that material. Yeah, on the sides. But it is very frustrating for Lego to not do printed legs. Like they have resources, it is not that much
Right.
more in the set, and they ask more and more money of the sets. They should give us a quality product, not plain legs. We all have, as you said, enough plain legs in collections.
So you did talk a little bit about how, with this whole process, it can take hours, it can take days, it can take weeks to make some of these minifigures. What has been the hardest minifigure, or what was the hardest minifigure that you ever, like, it just wasn't coming together right? You had to do it 2 or 3 times, or something like that.
Yeah, so it is not quite the minifig because it's a custom big fig created from the
Okay.
Nexonite lava demon. It has two parts from the Nexonites, which is the chest, yeah, with the
Mm-hmm.
very very thin V shape and large shoulder pads, and the head. Also from the Nexonites, from that demon. And the rest was brick built, and as many of the Nexonites said, it was not good looking, disproportionate, and everything. Yeah, and I really, really wanted because I love the demon series. I create like the demons and orcs, like the opposite factions of the regular knights are one of my favorite series to make, and there are a lot of them on my profile. And I wanted to make a big demon, and it's called the Mega Demon, and it finally came to life. But it took half a year of like 20
Oh, wow.
approaches to it. So I was like, it was sitting on my shelf, and every time I tried to make something from it, it just that didn't work. Yeah, because the torso he uses is so disproportionate that making legs for it, any legs, was very challenging, and making arms as well. So finally, I have used the Big Fig arms, both
Mm-hmm.
from the arms and legs, and created, let's say, flesh type because they are very, very not slim, but clean looking. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
you have one piece, one mold. Yeah, for the hands, and the arms were actually created months before I posted this fig because the legs took the rest of the time. Yeah, I just couldn't figure
Yeah.
out the legs. The connection there was very hard, but finally it was there, and I also recorded the tutorial for it. So if someone want to see it,
Okay.
it's somewhere in the reels. I don't know if it's pinned or not. You'll have to look at it because it is not working my Instagram page for me to see if the reel is pinned or not. So I don't
For
know.
me, it's like the fifth one down.
Yeah, so it's big red demon. People will find it, I think. And that was the hardest thing to make overall in my custom minifig career, I think, because it just took so many approaches and so much
Mm-hmm.
time. I was like going to drop it down for good, yeah. But finally, I have found a solution. And from the minifig perspective, like the regular sized ones, the Asimar Sira from D&D series, I think series 2,
Mm-hmm.
they have made white flying women. She has a very specific pose, like in flying, you have one leg a bit up,
Yeah.
and she's holding a spear. Yeah, creating that pose to look natural and like with the bended knee up, like in the flying position that she just jumped out from the air. I had that idea in mind, and with that you have very limited space on the minifig, because everything you use to hold the legs will be visible, and you have to remember that. Yeah, and I have tried so many variants of holding these legs that I don't even remember how many was there. But when I finally found one, I had to somehow hide the pieces. Yeah, so I've tried to incorporate some cape work around it, and doing two camas around it, also like strapped around the legs.
Mm-hmm.
With both of them had 4 holes to connect. It took me an hour straight just to connect these pieces
Oh
together.
gosh.
It was horribly, terribly hard to connect all of the pieces together, and also with the many of them. Let's say I call them midfigs because I was looking for the term in the internet and I found the term midfig. So the custom midfig I make when they are bigger than the regular size, like the brick built
Mm-hmm.
arms and legs, but not the big fig size, which is like usually big molds. Yeah, chunk molds. Uh, so usually with midfigs, I use 2x1 or 1x2 round plate with holes, and then you attach to the bottom of the torso. You can then use some bar pieces that comes inside. Yeah?
Okay.
And if you use it like regularly, it's fine because you are just connecting normal stats with anti-stats, yeah, on the torso.
Mm-hmm.
Now try that with camas when you have to place 6 holes on top of the 2x1
Yeah.
plate, and it limits the space you have to connect.
Right.
By every time you put something, it's less and less. So we've created that minifig. It was very hard because even if I had everything at place, then connecting it together to the torso was such a fragile connection. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I can create something very cool, but with all the mocks, the Lego is trying to make something that looks okay and it's not fragile. Yeah, like the stability of the sets are a crucial part of Lego. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and mocks have this not in mind exactly. They are just going for the looks. Yeah, if you have some cool ships and everything, most of them are not that strong connected. Sometimes, okay, the artists and mockers can do very stable constructions. Yeah, and it happens as well. But the looks are the main factor of the mocks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are more fragile, and this is the same with the custom minifigs. Yeah, sometimes sometimes you have so much on them that you have, like, from the neck that you put the minifig on, you have just 1 millimeter of space left to put the head. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at that image that you were referencing. That for the listeners, it's the second pinned image that you have on your Instagram channel, Syra,
Changed
daughter
a
of
lot.
Saloon. And one of the things that stands out that I just love as a detail on this, you mentioned having the leg kind of up and forward. I'm sure you have a secret on how you connected that. It's really in an interesting pose, but it looks very action oriented. But what I love is her cape that you have wrapped around her waist is the bath towel from the CMF series of the minifigure taking a bath. And you've
Yeah.
turned it inside out. And so you can just see the rubber duckies. But it looks so great because it's got this blue line around the bottom and then these yellow, what are the ducks, kind of poking through. But in the context of this minifigure, it looks really great, actually. And so, again, well done on how you've put all that together.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a compromise because I didn't have other waist capes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think it's a great waist cape, right? So, and maybe the duck is her spirit animal or something, right?
Yeah, and there are two waist capes. The other one is also from some other CMF with the uh, dark bluish gray stripe on it, or something, because I had to use what I had. And I don't know, there maybe is a waistcape full white, but from the character which has like this staired shape,
Mhm.
like the very sharp corners of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I used what I had in that time. Usually with custom minifigs, you can go two ways. Yeah, you can go the way to build with what you have, and to build with what you don't have. So you have to order it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
you sometimes have to make some compromises, even in the, let's say, I'm trying to put myself at the highest level of detail, but sometimes I also have to take compromises, because I just don't want to every time buy every piece I need. Yeah, I buy pieces in advance, and then I create from what I have, not create with thinking that I need that piece. It happens too, but I just want to work with what I have. So I work
Sure.
before to have a lot to work with.
Well, I
If
think in
that
many
makes sense.
ways, a lot of designers would echo that sentiment that compromise is the you know a common feeling that a lot of people have. But I think compromise is a feeling that not only expert mock builders have and designers have, but also AFOLs in general, right? I mean, we
Mhm.
can't buy every single Lego set out there, so at
Yeah.
some point we have to compromise on some of it.
It's much easier with mocks, I think, because mocks contain so many pieces that you can always build something around,
Yeah.
like a little bit different. I when I build mocks, I always like base on the parts I have. So sometimes the whole look of the mock is defined by the pieces I have, because I just have this piece in this color. Okay, so the whole ground will be in this color. Yeah. But with the minifigs, it can be a lot more visible. Yeah, if someone like cuts shorts, yeah, and don't use the piece that could be there, it is right away visible at the first sight. Yeah, so that's a bit the hardest things about, and also the joy of collecting. Yeah, the pieces
Mhm.
that you might need in the future, and some pieces that you will never use in the future, but they sit in your shelf.
Sometimes you buy 50 pieces and you're like, I'm going to use these one day. And then you find them 5 years later and you're like, huh.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of
So
baguettes.
yeah, sometimes you're at the pick a brick wall and you have to go buy a box full of baguettes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, been there as well. I've collected all of my let's say regular pieces through the pick-a-brick walls, because that
Uh-huh.
was the cheapest option. Yeah.
So I think along that lines, when you've made your minifigures, do you keep them all? Do you keep some of them so that you can reuse other parts? Or we talked about how certainly the minifigure takes up less room than like the Titanic, for example. But what do you do with them when you're done?
So after I shoot the photos of the minifigs, I try to store them as long as I can.
Okay.
Because I like so much the minifig I created that I don't want to get rid of it. I just don't want to disassemble it. But every now and then the time comes when I just don't have that piece and I have to take it off. And sometimes when I took just one piece of the minifig, I just right away disassemble it all. Yeah. But later on, I learned that maybe it would be nicer to just take off that piece and leave that minifig, because I might use it later for like an exhibition. Yeah, because right now,
Mm-hmm.
also on the end of this month, I will be on the exhibition in Kielce, in Poland, when we create the minifigure zone. Like we will have 5 or 6 artists from Poland, which do exclusively or partially custom minifigs, and it will be a very big site. I think about maybe 400, 500 custom minifigs in one place.
Wow.
And for that, I have to store my minifigs, because if I will have to like recreate 100 minifigs,
Mm.
it will take ages. Like believe
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
sometimes with complex techniques and everything, like I once had to recreate the minifigs, and it took me a whole week afternoons of recreating like 60 minifigs. Yeah, you
Wow.
have to look for all of the parts once again, connect them once again. Then you learn
And
that you don't have that many multiples. Yeah, so
yeah. And even remember how to put them back together. I'm sure there's there's times where we're like, wait, how did I do that?
yeah, at least I have photos.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we have time for one more question, and something that's very obvious through your work is that you really like fantasy. So what about the fantasy medium or kind of fantasy theme drives you to create?
Yeah, so the flexibility of that, because there's such a wide range of what you can do. There is light fantasy, dark fantasy,
Mm-hmm.
many different types of the fantasy that is there, and you can like the amount of media, the Lord of the Rings, the Dungeons and Dragons, everything just has so many possibilities to create. Like from the fantasy, I think the best is for me the Dungeons and Dragons, because you can literally think of anything and it will be lore accurate because you create the lore. Yeah, so you
Because you
just
invented it. Yeah.
yeah, so you just there are so many races, the species, the classes you can
Mm-hmm.
do, yeah. And it is spread across many games and media, as I said. So that is the fun thing about it, because uh, it also applies to science fiction, right? Because there are the Starcraft, Star Wars, many media in the sci-fi, yeah.
Yeah.
But I have a bit moved on from the Star Wars and sci-fi to the
Mm-hmm.
let's say more grown up castle stuff. Yeah, so the fantasy was a nice thing to create, like the knights,
Mm-hmm.
the animals, the companions. I also very much like, as you mentioned, from one of my favorite fics, the disembodied mage, which has this golem behind him. Those kinds of things just I very much like, yeah, to
Yeah.
create.
Well, I think thank you, Sobek, for coming on the show. I think for the listeners, we talked a lot about a bunch of different pieces. And again, go have fun going through his Instagram, because I mean, it like just like he was talking about, you create the lore. There's a Scarlet Witch crown and a Loki crown hidden somewhere in there. So I encourage the listeners to go find those two minifigures with those two pieces, because I know we have a lot of Marvel fans. So Sobek, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for talking through your process, giving us a behind the scenes peek at what you do. I mean, it's truly inspiring work. I mean, I know I'm like, I want to go make a minifigure right now. Um, do
Go
you
ahead.
have do you have any final thoughts before we move on to our next section in the show?
My biggest thought right now is that I'm very happy that I could be here, and thank you for the invitation. And I can give you the best tip for the minifig for the end. Yeah, just be guided by the prints. If you pick a torso, be guided by the prints. Then don't mess with it. Like if you have a specific base color, use that base color. If you have a specific armor color, use that armor color, and everything will come together nicely and clean.
Maybe we should do a custom minifigure challenge. Wes, we're gonna put together an Instagram post. We'll put go grab a torso, make a figure, and post it, and be inspired by a torso. I think that'd be fun. A little
Yeah.
little weekly challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, thanks again, Sobek.
Thank you.
West, let's go ahead and move over to our next section, which is brick mail.
Thank you very much, guys.
Brick mail. All right, so that was today's topic. That was our special guest, Sobek Bricks. Thank you again so much for joining us this week. I think we both, Wes and I, had a really fun time kind of chatting through your minifigures, your process, and go please check out his work. An image is worth 1,000 words, and there's like a bunch of images on there of all the cool stuff that he's done. So please check that out. West, Brick Mail, how about you take us through the first one?
Yeah. So our first brick mail was, let's see, from Alphonse Soup Person. Grinch, did I get that right?
Alphonse Suit Person.
I think that's it. They write, small correction. The Bricklink Designer Program Series 8 fan vote is live now and ends on May 16th. It doesn't start then. So, listeners, this is after the episode airs. Apologies. Love the take on the ideas projects. It's a gamble always on what is going to be chosen, similar to the Bricklink Designer Program.
Mm-hmm.
I do think La Katrina would be an awesome idea set. It's just so well done. And Smurfs is my IP pick. If it's well into a kids theme, would have the nostalgia factor, but know that it's likely an IP nightmare for approval. My betting guess would be the Grand Central Station. Woo! Chalk it up. Another one for the Grand Central Station.
Another one for you guys to cry over.
Don't be jealous. You would like a Grand Central Station too. That would be fun.
Yes, it would.
But it is a reach, and I knew that going into last week's episode. The Katrina would be really cool. It's kind of done in like that Sugar Skull, Dia de Muertos like kind of style, which looks really interesting. It would be, I think, a pretty divergent series for Lego, but at the same time not impossible. I don't know, Grinch. What do you think? Would that be maybe a little too outside of their wheelhouse, or?
I think it would be for Lego ideas.
Yeah.
I think something like that's a little bit more culturally specific, a little bit smaller focused. I think they would just maybe do on their own as like a seasonal release one year, have it on the shelf for like 4 months and then be done with it. Whereas I think they want their Lego idea sets to be kind of like the pseudo icons line, right? Of like really attracting adults, nice, cool, epic builds that people are going to share and post about and comment on and be like, look, this fan just made this giant Jaws set. It looks so cool, or something like that.
Yeah, that would be, I think that's a fair point. It would be interesting to see if Lego could expand upon their Lunar New Year series and do like holidays around the world, you know? I think the only area where that might be not problematic, that's not the right word. Where would you draw the line between a holiday being big enough or widely celebrated enough to be considered in that series and not?
I don't think you would necessarily. I think that's why you would leave it limited.
Yeah.
Maybe Lego store exclusive. We're just, like they did. I mean, they did like the Star Wars Millennium Falcon Christmas special diorama, and that thing was gone, on the shelf and gone, right? The very like literally a few months later. So I think instead of being like, oh, this is too small, I think they'd celebrate it, but then just be like, it's here, it's gone.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting point. I think that would be a really fun thing for them to explore. So, and a great way to kind of branch out. And then, you could take something like the holiday line and turn it into like, kind of like what they did with botanicals and branch it off of icons into its own subline and call it just like Lego Holidays or something.
Yeah.
And you could lean into the Lunar New Year. You could lean into Dia de Muertos or something like that. Or just like, and you could do different holidays from around the world. I think that would be a really fun idea. And then you could kind of reach into those cultural touch points and really highlight that in Lego. But again, I think you'd have to keep it so that it's a holiday celebrated by multiple cultures from multiple different countries, right? You'd want to keep it wide enough so it's not like this is a holiday specifically for the United States, right? Like you'd want it to be more of a global thing. So,
well, and Coco 2 is coming in 2029, and I know that feels like a long way away, but as far as like production cycles and planning go, That's really only. I mean, they're probably planning that 2 years in advance, right? So it's really not that far off.
We didn't get any sets from Coco One, did we? I know we got CMF.
Not. Yeah, I guess we didn't. We did get just a CMF.
That
They kind of
guitar
don't
was
really.
awesome. That was
Yeah, they
such
don't really
a cool guitar.
do. Like we don't typically get a Disney set like that, but we have recently. You know, like we got one Lilo and Stitch set. I think
Yeah.
going back to the conversation we had in the news, like that's where they're going wider and not deeper, right?
Right.
Traditionally we wouldn't have got that Lego or Lilo and Stitch set, right?
Right.
So we get one set for Fantastic Four and we get one set for Disney. And as a collector that has a little bit of wallet fatigue, I love that because I don't have to collect the Lilo and Stitch one.
Dude, I don't know. That's a pretty cool house. I like that one.
You can get it.
I might. I just might Grinch. Maybe. We'll see.
I think the Smurfs one, well, I understand why you'd like it. I wonder if Lego has a bad taste in their mouth because they just tried Smurfs World Tour a few years back.
That was Trolls, not
Trolls.
Smurfs.
Oh, no, dumb. I'm dumb. Okay, never. Don't listen to me. All right. Moving on. See, we all make mistakes. Thank you, Alphonse Superson. Can you let us know how to say your name so we're not choking over ourselves over here?
But first time writer to the podcast, so thank
Yes.
you for writing in, and we appreciate your opinion, especially me because you validated my choice of the Grand Central Station. So
I disagree. No,
Grinch, our
All
next writer is someone who's written into us a few times. Why don't you take that one?
Yes, the next one is from John FC66. He says, love this episode, love checking out Lego ideas, and check once a week for sets to vote for. Lots of good ones for this review. My top 3 would be The World of Studio Ghibli, Appa the Sky Bison, and Scooby-Doo Ravenwood Mansion. Studio Ghibli in particular would be awesome. Good thing we don't have a lot of Lego sets based on anime. My wallet would not be able to handle it. And we've got John, the weeb over here. I didn't know John was a weeb. I thought he was more of a Star Wars man myself, but I guess you can be both. So, John, nice recommendations. I think West would agree with you on the Studio Ghibli. In fact, we know he would. And yeah, I don't know if we're going to get Appa. I don't think this is, but I would totally say that and die on that hill and then we would get Appa.
I think the odds of Appa are about as good as Taylor Swift at the moment. Although maybe the parking lot,
zero.
Is the place for Appa and Studio Ghibli.
Is the parking lot going to be a gift and a curse? Because if something goes to the parking lot, they're giving us that transparency, but I think people are going to be like, what if something gets removed from the parking lot? And I do not mean made into a set.
Yeah. Do you recall off the top of your head, what are the 2 sets in the parking lot at the moment?
No.
Okay. Neither did I.
Well, why don't you take the next one and I will confirm.
We'll talk about that. Yeah. Our last comment comes from Tim, who writes in, I enjoyed the episode and the overview of the sets. Still think they will work to do the Christmas Vacation house because the Home Alone one did so well. And I think that's an interesting point, right? And again, we've talked about icons and ideas, both sort of on this parallel trajectory of being able to do one-off sets extremely well. And we've seen Lego Ideas really produce some wonderful variations on some of these holiday themed sets, right? So, off the top of my head, the ones that I think that stand out in particular are the Home Alone house. We had the 2 the theme is not coming to mind at the moment. The one with the witches, but we also had the Snow White house from Ideas. So I think we've seen a lot of great kind of one-off sets in that Lego Ideas line, and something like that National Lampoon house would be probably right up that Ideas alley to some extent. But yeah, I don't know. That one would be interesting. That one's also old enough that I'm curious.
Bro, your wife is too big of a fan of Hocus Pocus for you to just call it the one with the witches, and I'm going to text her after this.
Fortunately, she doesn't listen to the pod. Womp womp.
Oh, and unfortunately for you, your little brother with little brother energy, LBE, does. and he edits it. So I'll just send her the soundbite. She won't even need to listen to it.
No.
Sorry, Christmas House, National
Yes.
Lampoon.
I don't know. I think
Family
it'll be
Vacation.
fun.
Yeah, I think it would be too. I think the challenge is, like we talked about, there's two of them.
Yeah.
So how
Which one
how
gets
they
the
manage that, and
Yeah.
secretly maybe I hope that, because it's something we've talked about, like how they will manage. So West, going back to John real quick, in the parking lot, it is Tan Tan and Downton Abbey.
That's right, man. Okay.
So,
Do you think if they removed a set from the parking lot, do you think they would explain why?
No idea. I'd love to. I think what they said, they would only be in the parking lot for like a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think part of it is like we talked about, where, they really get into production times here, right? They're kind of stuck in this, like, we got to get this out. If we don't get this out, we're going to be delayed 6 months, and we're not going to have that new set on the shelf. Like, that's losing money. So I think they're going to just kind of move in and move out of these pretty quickly. We'll see how much explanation they get, right? Because at the same time, if you're Lego, you don't necessarily want to make the fans of that IP upset by that IP, right? Like,
Right.
They don't want to, crap on PBS and Downton Abbey and be like, well, they just wouldn't work with us. And
Yeah,
then
I think they'd
that's
pull
not
more
your
of like
intent, right?
a diplomatic approach, right? Which would just be like, hey, we, even with the extra time, had trouble securing the IP, and just leave it at that, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being like, no, the PBS people were like really hoity-toity, and they wanted too much money. And I mean, I'm being facetious here, but like, I don't think they would like call anybody out. Lego has some pretty gnarly market share and authority, but I don't know. That seems very anti-Danish to like put somebody on blast and be like, hey, these dudes didn't even want to work with us. Like, let's boycott them.
Huh. Almost like that's what's happening to them. All right. And that is a wrap of another episode of AFOLs Welcome. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you are listening to this show. If you'd like to write the podcast, please email us at afolswelcome@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at AFOLs Welcome. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.